All right, good morning, everybody. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but I think we're ready to get started. So good morning and welcome. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Jeremy Privee. I'm a speech-language pathologist at Nicholas Children's Hospital. Just to give you a little bit about my background, I received my undergraduate degree in Communication Sciences and Disorders from the University of Connecticut, and later my master's degree from Nova Southeastern University. I've been a speech pathologist for 12 years now. I started my career working for Nicholas Children's Hospital, which was recently changed from Miami Children's Hospital last year, and I started working there at the Dan Marino Center, which is in Weston. I was a therapist at that center from 2004 until 2012, and then I moved to the Palm Beach Gardens Outpatient Center when that center opened in 2012, and that's where I still am today. I have worked with the pediatric population specifically for the past 12 years and have evaluated and treated children with a variety of diagnoses and disorder, including autism, apraxia, articulation, phonological disorders, language delays and disorders, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, as well as other less common genetic disorders. My areas of clinical expertise are in the area of early language development, autism, as well as apraxia of speech. Thank you for joining today's presentation. The presentation will focus on how to promote early language development within routines. I hope you find the lecture informative, and I welcome any questions. The only thing I ask is that you please hold on to your questions and send them to me at the end of the presentation. Thank you. I want to start off by outlining the specific areas that will be discussed today and discuss what the objective of this presentation is. First, I will be reviewing and providing various definitions of what a routine is. Then I will provide you with some specific examples of different routines that might occur throughout a child's day. Next, I will be providing information and reviewing the reasons why daily routines are so important for a child's language development. After discussing the importance of daily routines, I will change gears and discuss several routines more specifically, and discuss ways in which caregivers can effectively promote language within these daily routines. Following that, I will be discussing ways of encouraging your child to move from a passive participant in his or her daily routine to more of an active participant as their comfort levels and their language levels begin to increase. I will also share with you some strategies on how to modify these routines as your child progresses in order to increase language expectations and promote language advancement. Finally, I felt it would be beneficial to review and discuss what normal language development looks like from birth to 3 years of age, and also discuss several warning signs of language delay. During that time, we can also review some of the possible causes of speech and language delays. So first, let's start off by defining what a routine actually is. Here are a few definitions that I came across online. So first, a routine, a regular way of doing things in a particular order, an unvarying or habitual method or procedure, a sequence of actions regularly followed, a usual set of activities or ways of doing things. So as you can see, the specific wording on each definition may be different, but the overall message is that a routine is basically doing the same thing the same way each time. And why is this so beneficial for young children? Because children aren't following the clock or understand the concept of time. They navigate through their day based on the events that occur. Knowing when and how these events are going to occur reduces a child's stress and makes them feel more comfortable and secure. When a child is comfortable and secure with his or her physical actions, that child is more open to accepting and processing the language that is occurring within those routines, making language acquisition easier. We talked about the meaning of routine. Now, let me give you some examples of actual routines that may occur during a child's day. A child's day may consist of a larger daily routine that is broken up into smaller routines within that larger daily routine. Each family will have different activities and routines that they incorporate into their child's day. Here are some examples of some common routines that occur during a child's day. Bath time, mealtime, getting dressed, riding in the car, story time, and bedtime, just to give a few examples. Routines can be any act during the day. What makes the act a routine is doing it the same way each time and for that activity to occur frequently during a child's week. This is what allows for repetitive learning in a natural yet structured way. Children are not the only ones that need routines. Routines are also very important for adults as well. Teaching a young child how to understand routines and how to follow an organized schedule will also be beneficial in assisting them in organizing their own lives as they grow up. Creating that predictability during your day reduces anxiety and stress, not only for children, but also adults. Let me give you an example. My weekday mornings usually follow the same pattern. I know when I have to wake up, then I have my coffee and breakfast while I watch TV for a few minutes. Then I take a shower, I get dressed, and I leave for work. This routine has set up my expectations for me. I know that if I follow this routine each morning, I don't have to worry about things such as if I will be late for work, or am I going to get stuck in traffic. So this is just an example of how routines reduce anxiety and the feeling of being anxious about the unknown. It's the same for children, just on a different level. So many things are new to them. If we can organize and frequently expose them to the same activities, they will feel more secure and comfortable during the day. But we also know that things can't be the same every day or every time. So we need to also be aware that a certain level of flexibility is very important to have. And this is something that I will discuss more in detail later on. Now, I'd like to further discuss the reasons why establishing routines for a child is so important. First off, as I said before, when a child knows what to expect during his or her day, that child feels safe and secure. A child that feels safe and secure and comfortable within his environment won't waste as much time being focused on figuring out what is coming next. Why is feeling safe and secure so important for a child when we talk about language development? Because when that child is feeling that way, he or she is more open to exploring and interacting with others. The child will be more engaged in social interactions, vocabulary, and language concepts being provided to them consistently during these routines. This engagement will allow the child to place meaning to social interaction, language, and vocabulary. Creating a predictable daily routine also allows children to feel more comfortable with the world around them. Routines also teach children a certain level of self-control by learning that they have to wait until certain times to do certain activities. The use of routines can begin to foster a child's level of independence over time, especially as they begin to take over and lead portions of their daily routines. Routines set up a comfort level for children that allow them to gain confidence through repetitive tasks, which open them up for learning. One of the most important aspects about routines is that they teach children from an early age to begin to understand how to organize and order their lives. The ability to follow a larger daily schedule will require the understanding that multiple activities will occur during the day. And within each one of these activities, the child will also learn to understand the smaller steps needed to complete a specific routine, such as taking a bath, getting dressed, or eating a meal. It is never too early or too late to implement a routine for a child. The earlier that you begin to implement routines with a child, the easier it should be. I mentioned the importance of teaching a child to have a certain level of flexibility within their daily routine. It's not possible for every day to be carried out the same way. A child will need to learn how to allow for a certain level of flexibility within their day to avoid becoming too rigid and having meltdowns when small changes in their daily routines occur. Try changing the order of how a child's daily routine is carried out, or modify portions of a daily routine from time to time, especially as a child begins to grow and expand their skills. They will need to be exposed to a larger variety of learning opportunities. It is important for a caregiver to understand ways to expose children to opportunities, to learn to be flexible, as this is a skill that will be very important for them later in life. As we all know, things don't always go as planned. Parents need to also understand that they need to be flexible during times when a child is not being as compliant as they would like. Children begin to acquire new vocabulary easiest during routines because it gives children repetitive opportunities for them to assign meaning to specific vocabulary. For example, a parent may use the word ball with a child during a play routine. During that play routine, however, the child may see more objects than just a ball. Maybe a ball, a block, and a car. So he or she may not be able to assign meaning to the word ball during that initial exposure because there were multiple objects. However, if that child is exposed to the same word ball during a different play routine, and his parent gives him the ball this time, he or she has now had an additional opportunity to assign meaning to that vocabulary. That is why repetitive exposure to the same vocabulary is so important. It begins to build the child's meaning and comprehension for vocabulary, which should eventually lead to the child expressing those words. Not only are routines the first opportunities for children to be exposed to vocabulary, it is also a time that children are exposed to early language concepts. For example, a child will need to understand sequencing and temporal concepts such as first then or before and after in order to understand the order of a daily routine. Children will learn additional concepts such as descriptive concepts like the difference between hot and cold when they feel the temperature of their bath water during their bath time routine. Spatial concepts such as in, on, under are common words that will occur during multiple routines. Children will be exposed to a large variety of these concepts during all their daily routines, and the complexity of these concepts will increase as the child's language grows. Routines are not only beneficial to children, they are very beneficial to parents and caregivers. They can help to reduce stress during difficult times of the day, such as bedtime or mealtime. When there is a routine set in place, there should be less argument from a child because the expectations have been set and consistently followed. Now I will discuss how language can be promoted within routines. Start by identifying your opportunities for routines. Each family's routines are different and unique. Understanding and identifying what your routines are, or understanding how to set up a routine, is the first step. Once you have identified and created your routine, set up a daily schedule so these routines can occur consistently each day. Not every day will be the same, but remember, a certain level of flexibility is also a positive skill for children to learn. Children aren't always going to want to follow every routine, so be flexible. there are excellent language opportunities during those times too. Next, you should identify the vocabulary and other language concepts that can be paired with each routine. Think about the routine and what vocabulary you should consistently incorporate into each routine. Choose objects and vocabulary that will be meaningful and interesting for a child. As previously described, also incorporate different language concepts into these routines. Frequent exposure to naturally occurring routines is the key to facilitating language acquisition. Routines should be broken down into smaller, more simple steps, which are performed the same way most times. And the vocabulary should be paired with each step in order for that child to begin to assign meaning to words. A key to making your child's routine as enjoyable as possible for them is to make the routine fun. Be creative. The best opportunities are the ones that are most interactive and fun. When interacting with your child during a routine, or anytime, use inflection, different facial expressions, and eye contact. This will capture your child's attention and make learning fun and exciting for them. These are also key elements of promoting pre-linguistic or basic social interaction skills, which are key components to a child's development. An important aspect of promoting language, as well as the opportunity for language growth within routines, is to allow your child to become more of an active participant in the routine as his or her language progresses. As the child participates in the same routine over and over, his or her role changes. He or she begins to gain more confidence and gradually will say and do more within that routine. Lastly, when discussing ways to promote language within routines, it is important to understand when your child is ready to have the complexity of his or her routine increased. This is necessary in order for the child to continue to gain new vocabulary and higher level language skills. So next I'm going to break down a specific routine. In this example, a bath time routine, and identify the individual steps of the routine, give examples of specific vocabulary and language concepts that can be incorporated into each step, and discuss some opportunities to increase the language complexity of this routine. So the steps for a bath time routine may include the following: turning on the water, taking off the child's clothes, playing with the toys in the bathtub, washing your child's face and body, maybe reading a bath book, and then getting off and drying off. Now that we have identified the steps of the routine, we can begin to assign vocabulary and language concepts to each step. For example, in the first step, when we turn on the water, we can focus on words such as water, on, off, and even begin to use descriptive concepts such as hot and cold. In the next step, when you are removing the child's clothing, you can focus on words such as off, or up for hands up, shirt, sock, pants, or shorts, or any clothing items. When the child is playing with the bath toys, you will want to match the vocabulary to those toys. An important aspect when pairing vocabulary with toys is the timing. Make sure that you are labeling the toy when the child is engaged in that specific toy. Again, this is the best way that he or she will be able to assign meaning to that vocabulary. The next step in the routine, if the next step is to wash hands, focus on words such as wash, hands, feet, tummy, or face, just to give a few examples. If a bath book is part of your bath time routine, focus on engaging your child by reading the book aloud while pointing the pictures on the pages. Again, make sure that the timing of what you are reading matches what you are pointing to within the book. You may ask your child to physically assist you in turning the pages, or have them anticipate when the page should be turned. Waiting and allowing your child time to lead this act is an example of an opportunity to let your child become more of an active participant in the routine. Finally, while trying on, you could focus on words such as all done, and even some descriptive concepts such as wet, dry, or clean. As the child's language progresses, it is important to increase the language complexity of his or her routine. Some strategies to increase the complexity may include the following. Begin to include more verbs or action in the target vocabulary. For example, in the bath time routine, you may want to include actions such as washing, pouring, splashing. Also, along with verbs, you can also begin to use a larger variety of adjectives. Ask your child to describe parts of the routine to you. For example, when a child is first exposed to a bath routine, the caregiver may touch the water and say either it's hot or it's cold. As a child's language skills progress, ask your child to feel the water and then encourage them to tell you how it feels by asking, is the water hot or cold? You can also begin to ask the child to predict the next step in the routine by asking things like, what should we do next? Begin to incorporate questions into your routine, starting with simple what and where, and yes/no questions such as, what is that? Or, where's the ball? To increase the complexity even further, ask your child if they can tell you about what happened earlier in their day or what they would like to do the following day. This will encourage your child to extend their responses to longer phrases and sentences, as well as focus on recalling past events and predicting future events. Next, I'd like to take a look at a portion of a video of a toddler's playtime routine, and then afterwards, I can discuss the opportunity for language acquisition and use that has taken place.
There's an online degree from Johns Hopkins Advanced Academic Program. The veggies went to sleep. They went night-night. Yeah. No, but or it's time to have a bath and go to bed. Can you pick up your animals and put them in the ark? Where's the piggy? Yeah, where is it? It's over there. Can you get the piggy? Pick up the piggy. Good job, and put it in the ark. Good job. Where's the ducky? Good job. The zebra. Good job. Then. Oh, that's a lion. Good job. Okay, put it in the ark. What about the ducky? Where's the ducky or the loo? Loo, yeah. Quack, quack. Yeah. Hey, good job. Where are you? Where's the cow?
That's a goat.
That's a goat. She goes bleh. Yes, put it in the ark. Good job. Where's the cow? What does the cow say? Good job. Can you put it in the ark? How about this one? Tiger. What does the tiger say? Good job. What about this one? Good job. What
There are many nice social and communication acts that occurred during this video. The child and mother are establishing eye contact with each other, and the child is able to look back and forth between toys and his mother and demonstrate really nice joint attention skills. The mother is focusing on having her child identify and name his toys, follow simple commands, and even imitate animal sounds. At times, she is using appropriate timing to model the vocabulary she is using and making sure she and her son are both engaged in the same object at the same time. The little boy is even able to predict the next part of his nighttime routine when he walks to the stairs to go take a bath. Next, I will discuss why it is important to encourage a child to become more of an active participant in his or her routine. Initially, children will be more of passive participants in their newly established routines. What this means is that parents will be labeling vocabulary while physically going through each step of the routine. At first, it will just be putting your child through the motions, but remember that this is an important time because you are being consistent with your routines, which is setting up a level of comfort for your child, which will allow him or her to eventually be able to place the importance and focus on vocabulary and begin to assign meaning to the vocabulary within each routine. The child's role will begin to slowly transform from a passive to a more active participant as he or she is exposed to the same routine repeatedly. A child will begin to not only anticipate physical aspects of the routine, such as lifting their arms up to put a shirt on, but will also start to participate in using the vocabulary they have repeatedly been exposed to. It is important to start small. At this stage, it is important for caregivers to begin to allow time for their child to understand and use new words before they begin to increase the vocabulary and language complexity. Children can progress from labeling during each step to verbally anticipating or asking for the next item or action in the sequence. You have created routines that are consistent and broken into small, simple steps, which has made it easier for a child to predict the next step in a sequence. The child will become more of an active participant as he or she gains more confidence in his or her abilities. For example, a child may eventually transition from identifying and labeling simple vocabulary and predicting the next step in a routine to more complex skills, such as asking for the next step in the sequence, to answering and asking simple questions during a routine. Children can progress their expressive language skills from sound play to sound imitation to simple words and phrases, and finally more complex descriptive language. A child's receptive language skills will progress from understanding basic routine commands to identifying common objects, to identifying body parts, and continuing to progress to include comprehension of a variety of language concepts. I've talked a lot about the opportunities to focus on language development within daily routines, but routines also are great opportunities to teach social aspects of communication, which are important building blocks for successful communication skills. It's important for parents to encourage their children to participate socially during routines by demonstrating eye contact and shared enjoyment with their child. These are the ways that a child will engage as a conversational partner with others before he or she can even speak. Establishing eye contact and joint attention is critical if the parent wants to successfully introduce new vocabulary when they are both engaged in an object. As I mentioned before, the timing of this is so important. The right timing is needed for the child to establish meaning. A child can also begin to understand facial expressions and understand how those cues relate to how another person is feeling. Routines provide numerous opportunities to teach turn-taking, such as rolling a ball back and forth, or taking turns driving a car or feeding a doll. These basic turn-taking skills build the foundation for future social skills that become more complex, such as knowing when to initiate a conversation or how when to respond appropriately when someone else begins a conversation. Let's review some of the important details for caregivers to keep in mind. First, don't always anticipate the needs of your child before they have the opportunity to name or ask for something. For example, by giving him a certain food item before he asks. This allows the child to remain more of a passive participant. As the child becomes older, allow the opportunity for your child to initiate steps in the routine. Let him or her know what it feels like to be the one to lead the steps. For example, picking a book, opening the book, turning the page, pointing and naming items on the page. Teach your child to take more of the lead when they are ready. Finally, one of the most difficult roles that a caregiver has is in understanding their child's level of participation and language and working within their current level to provide the most optimal opportunities for language use. If the routines are not demanding enough, the child will not be maximizing their learning potential. If the routines are too demanding, the child will most likely shut down or try to avoid those routines altogether. A caregiver's role is in understanding your child's level of participation and language and working within their current level to provide the most optimal opportunities for language understanding and use. The most challenging part is knowing when and how to transition your child to more complex levels of participation and modifying their level of support. Many families choose to use pictures or visual schedules as another way to support their child's understanding and ability to follow their daily routine. These visual schedules can be very helpful for parents as well. Attached in this slide is just one example of a visual schedule of a child's daily routine. So in this daily schedule, the child wakes up at 7:30 a.m., then eats breakfast, gets dressed and brushes his teeth, and then there's playtime or errands, then there's lunch, story time and nap, playtime, followed by eating dinner, taking a bath and brushing teeth, and then story time and bedtime. And each step in the sequence is paired with a picture. So there are an enormous amount of examples and different ideas for visual daily schedules, and they can be accessed simply through Google or Pinterest, just to give a few examples. Repetitive books and songs are wonderful things to incorporate into your child's daily routine. Repetitive books are excellent examples and provide support in the following ways. The text and illustrations enable children to anticipate words, phrases, or events. Predictable or repetitive books can be stepping stones in the reading developmental process because they are engaging and interesting to young children. The listener can also participate in the reading. Repetitive phrases can help children follow storylines and more fully understand the sequence in a story. Predictable books have wonderful story patterns that help the reader deliver the story with fluency and rhythm. And attached to this slide are just a few examples of common repetitive books for children. There's several Pete the Cat books, I Love My White Shoes, Rocking in My School Shoes, The Pout Pout Fish, Cat the Cat, Who Is That? There's Brown Bear, Polar Bear, just to give a few examples. Additionally, repetitive songs also teach anticipation of words and phrases, as well as encourage social interaction, gesture use, and imitation. Attached to this slide are several examples of repetitive songs for children, as well as a link to access many more common repetitive songs. So there's Five Little Monkeys, Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes, If You're Happy and You Know It, Itsy Bitsy Spider, Old MacDonald had a farm, and The Wheels on the Bus. Those are some of the most common repetitive songs that you've probably all heard of. It is important for parents to have a general understanding of where their child's comprehension and expressive language skills should be at different ages. There are many resources available for parents to gain this information, and a family's pediatrician should also be monitoring these skills routinely during the child's regular visits. Attached is a simple chart from the American Speech Language Hearing Association that gives a general outline of what a child should be hearing and understanding, as well as expressing from birth to 1 year of age. So from birth to 3 months, a child startles to loud noises, quiets or smiles when spoken to, seems to recognize your voice, and quiets if crying. Increases or decreases
behavior to room 1124, please.
Sucking behavior in response to sound.
1124, please.
Makes pleasure sounds like cooing and gooing. Cries differently for different needs. Smiles when you see them. From 4 to 6 months, the child moves eyes in directions of sounds, responds to changes in tone of your voice, notices toys that make sounds, pays more attention to music, may start babbling sounds more speech-like with many different sounds like P, B, and M, chuckles and laughs, vocalizes excitement and displeasure, makes gurgling sounds when left alone and while playing with you. From 7 months to a year, the child enjoys games like peekaboo and pat a cake, turns and looks in directions of sounds, listens when spoken to, recognizes words for common items like cup, shoe, book, or juice, and begins to respond to requests like come here or do you want more. Babbling has both long and short groups of sounds such as ta-ta, up. Speech or non-crying sounds to get and keep attention, uses gestures to communicate like waving or holding up their arms to be picked up, imitates different speech sounds, has 1 or 2 words such as hi, dog, dada, and mama are common around his first birthday, although the sounds of those words might not be clear. This additional chart from the American Speech Language Hearing Association gives a general outline of what a child should be hearing and understanding, as well as expressing from 2 to 3 years of age. So from 2 to 3 years, a child understands differences in meaning, go, stop, in, on, big, little, up and down, follows 2 requests, for example, get the book and put it on the table, listens to and enjoys hearing stories for longer periods of time. Has a word for almost everything, uses 2 or 3 words to talk about and ask for things, uses sounds like K, G, F, T, D, and N. Speech is understood by familiar listeners most of the time. The child often asks for or directs attention to objects by naming them, asks why, and may stutter on words or sounds. There are times when a child's language is not developing typically. Here are several different common causes of speech and language problems in children. Hearing loss is often overlooked and is easily identified. If your child is speech and language delayed, their hearing should be tested. Intellectual disability is a common cause of speech and language delay. Prematurity can lead to many kinds of developmental delays, including speech and language problems. Auditory processing disorder describes a problem with decoding speech sounds. And neurological problems like cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy, and traumatic brain injury can affect the muscles needed for speaking. Autism affects communication. Speech, language, and communication problems are often an early sign of autism. Structural problems like cleft lip or palate can interfere with normal speech. Apraxia of speech is a specific speech disorder in which the child has difficulty in sequencing and executing speech movements. In closing, I'd like to discuss how to know when it's time to seek assistance. If a child is acquiring his or her language skills at a slower rate, or if your child is not gaining new language skills as they grow, they may need the assistance of a speech-language pathologist. It is important to identify these concerns and implement services as early as possible in order to maximize a child's therapeutic outcomes. Attached is information from Han in 2011 that provides information on when parents should seek assistance. So when should you seek help? Why 12 months? If your child isn't babbling with changes in tone, doesn't use gestures like waving bye-bye or shaking head for no, doesn't respond to his or her name, doesn't communicate in some way when he or she needs help with something. By 15 months, you should seek help if the child doesn't understand and respond to words like no and up, says no words, doesn't point to objects or pictures when asked, doesn't point to things of interest as if to say, look at that, and then look right at you. So by 18 months, you should seek help if the child doesn't understand simple commands like don't touch, isn't using at least 20 single words like mama or up, doesn't respond with a word or gesture to a question such as what's that or where's your shoe, can't point to 2 or 3 major body parts such as head, nose, eyes, or feet. And you should seek help by 24 months if your child says fewer than 100 words, isn't consistently joining 2 words together, like daddy go or shoes on, doesn't imitate actions or words, doesn't pretend with toys, such as feeding dolls or making toy men drive toy cars. And seek help by 30 months if the child says fewer than 300 words, isn't using action words like run, eat, or fall, isn't using some adult grammar, such as 2 babies or doggy sleeping. And seek help between 3 to 4 years if your child doesn't ask questions, isn't using sentences such as, I don't want that, my truck is broken, by 3 years, and isn't able to tell a simple story by 4 or 5 years. Thank you everyone for attending this presentation. I hope you found it informative. At this time, feel free to send me any questions if you may have them. Thank you very much.